In the cold darkness of the void, there is no salvation. The Indomitable Wrath, a proud frigate of the Imperial Navy, stands as part of a desperate battle fleet, tasked with holding the line against a Tyranid Hive Fleet of unprecedented size and ferocity. Captain Havelock Gaius and his battle-hardened crew know they are not meant to win, only to delay the inevitable long enough for the Imperium to muster a counterattack. But the Tyranids are not merely an enemy. They are hunger incarnate. As the Hive Fleet descends upon them, the crew of the Indomitable Wrath will face horrors beyond human comprehension. Duty, loyalty, and faith will be tested to breaking point as the line between survival and oblivion fades. There are no heroes in this war. There is only the void and the hunger that dwells within it. The bridge of the Indomitable Wrath was a shrine to war. Massive columns of gilded steel framed the command deck, their surfaces adorned with fading inscriptions of victories long past, victories that meant nothing in the face of the enemy lurking in the abyss. Candlelight flickered across prayer scrolls affixed to cogitator terminals, their sacred words a futile plea against the vast, uncaring void. The air was thick with the scent of machine oil, burning incense, and the ever-present metallic tang of desperation. Captain Havelock Gaius stood before the reinforced viewport, hands clasped behind his back, his uniform crisp yet worn by time and duty. His lined face bore the wear of too many battles, too many losses. The weight of command pressed upon his shoulders like the cold hand of the grave. Outside, the Imperial battle fleet loomed, its warships locked in the slow, methodical dance of formation adjustments. The frigates, cruisers, and battleships of the Imperium of Man floated in orbit above Vandium Prime, a planet deemed too strategically important to fall. Not that it mattered. The Tyranids would come. They always did. Gaius inhaled deeply, letting the stale, recycled air fill his lungs before exhaling slowly. His officers stood at their stations, waiting, watching. Every soul aboard knew why they were here, why the Imperium had gathered such a force in this sector. The Hive Fleet was coming, and when it arrived, nothing they did would matter. They were a wall of flesh and metal against an ocean that would never stop rising. The thought lingered in his mind before First Officer Linara Voss spoke.
They're late.
Her voice was smooth but edged with tension. She stood to his right, her stance stiff, arms folded. Her eyes, sharp, calculating, remained locked on the strategic hololith that displayed the battle fleet's formation. The Tyranid fleet had been detected weeks ago, its course unmistakable. The War Council had expected the first contact 3 days prior, yet the Xenos had not arrived, not in force.
Nothing about this makes sense,
said Chief Tactical Officer Ren Vargas, standing at his station. He absently tapped his gauntleted fingers against the surface of the tactical console.
Hive fleets don't hesitate. They don't delay, they consume. The fact that we aren't already knee-deep in bioforms means either they're stalling or
they've found something they like better.
Gaius finished, voice low. A brief silence followed, broken only by the distant hum of the ship's reactors. Then it happened. The klaxon wailed, shrill and merciless. Emergency lumen strips flickered crimson. Servo skulls shrieked out battle station designations. The bridge came alive with a flurry of movement as crew members rushed to their positions, hands flying across consoles, issuing rapid, clipped confirmations. Gaius didn't need to ask what had triggered the alarm. He already knew.
Report!
He barked. At the augur station, Master of Augurs, Tyrus Hale, worked his consoles with the detached precision of a man who had long since stripped himself of fear. His cybernetic eyes flickered as they processed incoming data.
Contact confirmed. Multiple enemy vessels emerging from the void at extreme range. Estimated count, 7 bioforms. Small scale. Reconnaissance force.
Voss leaned forward, studying the hololith.
Are they engaging?
Negative.
Hale responded.
No significant acceleration vectors. They are observing.
A ripple of unease spread across the bridge.
Observing.
Helmsmaster Orinvale scoffed. The helmsman's voice carried its usual irreverence, but Gaius could hear the steel beneath it.
Since when do the big ugly bastards take notes before they eat?
No idea.
Said Navigator Syra Quint from the shadows of her station.
But if they're watching, it means they're thinking. And if they're thinking...
They're learning.
Vargas cut in grimly. Gaius exhaled. Enough speculation.
They will not return to their fleet.
He said coldly.
We burn them from the void. Prepare for engagement.
Vargas nodded, fingers flying across his terminal.
Targeting augurs locked, weapons ready.
Gaius turned to Master of Vox Arlen Yast.
Signal the fleet. Make it known. Weapons free.
Jas grinned, the flickering lumen casting sharp shadows over his features.
With pleasure, sir.
He toggled the Vox.
Fleet Command, this is Indomitable Wrath. Contact confirmed. Weapons hot.
A pause. Then a crackling reply.
Indomitable Wrath. Fleet acknowledges. Destroy them.
Gaius felt a grim satisfaction settle over him.
Helmsmaster, bring us into optimal range. Unleash hell.
Vale's hands danced over the controls.
Aye, Captain. Punching it.
The frigate lurched forward, its massive engines roaring to life as it cut a path through the void. Around them, the other warships of the battle fleet followed suit, turning to bring their weapons to bear. The enemy ships, flesh-bound monstrosities, pulsing with bioluminescent growths, remained motionless, unmoving, as if waiting. Then, the void ignited. Lance batteries carved searing trails of light across the darkness, striking the lead Tyranid bioform. The creature detonated instantly, its organic hull rupturing like overripe fruit. Macro cannons thundered, spewing a relentless barrage of high-caliber rounds. Explosions bloomed in the abyss. The Imperial fleet fired in perfect coordination, and one by one, the enemy ships began to die.
Second kill confirmed.
Hale reported.
A third one's trying to break off.
Vargas noted, eyes locked on the displays.
Won't get far.
It didn't. A torpedo from a nearby cruiser caught the retreating bioform square in its center, ripping it apart in a fountain of acid and shattered chitin. Gaius watched, impassive. This was too easy. It wasn't satisfaction he felt, it was doubt. Within minutes, the last of the bioships was nothing more than scattered debris drifting through the cold void. Silence settled across the bridge, broken only by the dull hum of cogitators running post-engagement diagnostics.
Well,
Vale said, leaning back.
that was disappointing.
Disappointing?
Voss echoed, eyes narrowing.
A clean kill is never disappointing.
That wasn't a fight.
Vargas murmured.
That was a test.
The weight in the room shifted. The battle fleet had suffered 0 losses. The Tyranids hadn't fired a shot. They had done nothing. Gaius turned to the viewport. The void stretched before them, vast and empty, and somewhere, beyond the cold reach of Imperial augurs, the Hive Fleet lurked, watching. The aftermath of the battle was eerily silent. Not in the bridge, where the murmur of officers finalizing reports hummed beneath the crackling of Vox traffic, but outside in the cold, empty void where the enemy had left nothing behind. No wreckage substantial enough to analyze, no lingering biosignatures, nothing. As if the Tyranids had been ghosts, fleeting specters in the darkness, swept away by fire and steel. Captain Havelock Gaius stood near the reinforced viewport, a glass of amasec in his gloved hand, staring out into the abyss. The amber liquid burned as he drank, but it did nothing to silence the unease gnawing at the back of his mind. The enemy hadn't fought back. That should have been cause for celebration. It wasn't. He glanced across the bridge where his officers were doing what they always did after a battle, returning to routine. The Vox consoles crackled as Master of Vox Arlen Yast exchanged post-combat reports with the fleet. He spoke with his usual cocky energy, flipping through data scrolls with the casual air of a gambler checking his cards.
Aye, Command, you heard right. 0 casualties.
Jas smirked, though the humor didn't quite reach his eyes.
Clean sweep. We got them before they even saw it coming. Almost feels like a crime.
A curt voice crackled back through the Vox, barely audible over the channel's static.
Acknowledged. Stand by for further orders.
Jas sighed, shutting off the channel and leaning back in his chair, rubbing his temples.
Fething eerie,
he muttered.
Usually we're picking bits of crewmen out to the bulkheads by now.
Give it time,
said First Officer Linara Voss, her tone dry. She stood near the tactical console, arms folded, eyes watching the crew with the precision of someone who had spent years keeping men from falling apart.
The Tyranids don't hesitate without a reason. The next fight won't be so simple.
Wouldn't mind if it was.
Helmsmaster Oren Vale piped up from his station. He leaned back in his chair, feet propped against his console, with the casual insolence of a man who had tempted death too many times to take it seriously.
Emperor's bones. When was the last time we had a fight that didn't end with the deck coated in Voidsman paste?
Don't get comfortable.
Chief Tactical Officer Ren Vargas interjected, his fingers tapping against his console in irritation.
That wasn't a real engagement. It was recon. The Hive Fleet let us have those ships so they could watch how we fight.
Vale scoffed.
They watched themselves get vaporized, not exactly a brilliant strategy.
Vargas's expression darkened.
You think a Hive Fleet cares about a handful of drones? It's adapting. The next time we see them, they won't be so easy to kill.
The bridge fell quiet again, save for the soft whirring of cogitators and the distant murmur of crewmen performing post-battle system checks. Chief Engineer Revis 9, hunched over a data slate near the bridge's Mechanicus alcove, clicked his metallic fingers against the steel of his skull. The dull, clanking noise echoed across the chamber.
The machine spirits require tending,
he intoned, his voice a dry rasp of binary and flesh.
Battle strain upon the Indomitable Wrath's reactor cores is marginal, but tolerances must be maintained. Flesh is weak, iron endures. The Omnissiah commands it.
Voss pinched the bridge of her nose.
Yes, Revis. We all understand that the machine must be cared for, and so must the crew.
The crew is replaceable.
Revis 9 droned without looking up. Vale snorted.
Love you too, Cogboy.
Before Voss could reprimand him, the side doors of the bridge hissed open, revealing the imposing figure of ship's commissar Julian Orphiel. His long black coat billowed slightly as he stepped forward, his gloved hands clasped neatly behind his back. The golden aquila on his chest plate gleamed under the dim lumen strips, as polished and pristine as his posture. Orphiel's cold gaze swept the bridge, pausing only briefly on Gaius.
No casualties. Minimal resistance. Curious.
Gaius set his glass down on the command pulpit.
If you're about to suggest that our victory was undeserved, Commissar, save it.
Orfield's lip curled slightly in distaste.
You mistake my intent, Captain. It is not our competence that concerns me. It is the enemy's passivity. I find it unsettling.
For once, everyone agreed with him. The silence was broken by the sudden rasping cough of Chief Medici Veria Solas, who strode onto the bridge, wiping her blood-stained hands against a rag.
4 crewmen with minor burns from a ruptured capacitor on Deck 7. They'll live.
She tossed the rag aside and gave Gaius a tired nod.
Small mercies.
You should rest,
Voss said. Solas exhaled, rubbing her temples.
And miss the next slaughter? Wouldn't dream of it.
Optimistic as always.
Master of Augurs Tyrus Hale remarked dryly. The censor officer had been eerily quiet since the battle ended, his cybernetic augments clicking softly as he scanned the augur displays again.
Something wrong, Hale?
Gaius asked. Hale hesitated.
The enemy fleet.
His fingers hovered over the display.
It was watching us, but it wasn't alone.
Gaius frowned.
Explain.
Hale adjusted his augur feeds, enhancing the long-range data returns.
Shortly before the engagement, we picked up something beyond our scanner's effective range. A larger mass, much larger. Then, just as the bioships were destroyed, it vanished.
A vanguard?
Voss guessed.
Number more like...
Hale exhaled slowly, as if struggling to find the words.
Like it was never there at all.
A shadow settled over the bridge. Quint shifted uneasily, her third eye hidden beneath her psychic blindfold.
The warp recoils from the Tyranids,
she murmured.
Whatever he saw, it wasn't natural.
We're being watched,
Hale concluded.
By something else.
For a moment, no one spoke. Then the Vox crackled to life.
Indomitable Wrath. This is Fleet Command.
Gaius took a slow breath before activating the channel.
Go ahead.
New orders. Assemble a detachment of frigates. You are to reconnoiter an Imperial outpost on a nearby moon. No contact has been established for over 72 hours. You leave immediately.
Gaius exhaled through his nose.
Acknowledged.
The channel cut off. He turned back to the bridge crew, eyes scanning each of them in turn. Vale was already grinning, Vargas was already scowling, and Orfiel had already straightened to prepare his list of executions for potential failures. The camaraderie was there, the familiarity, the rhythm of duty, but beneath it all the knowledge that something was very, very wrong. And soon they would find out why. 6 hours later, edge of the Vandium subsector. The Indomitable Wrath cut through the black like a silent predator, its hull shrouded in the faint ethereal glow of the nearby planet's sun. Flanking it were 3 other Imperial frigates, each scarred and battle-worn, their void shields humming in preparation for the unknown. The mission was simple: reconnaissance. A small Imperial outpost stationed on a barren moon had gone silent. No distress signals, no communications, nothing. It could be a malfunction, it could be something worse. In all likelihood, it was something worse. On the bridge, Captain Havelock Gaius stood with his officers, eyes fixed on the hololithic display that flickered in the dim lumen light. The outpost was a mere fortified relay station, tasked with tracking long-range void movements beyond the sector. It had no significant weapons, no defenses beyond its garrison. It should not have been a target. And yet, It was silent.
Approaching designated coordinates.
Helmsmaster Orin Vale called from his station, his fingers tapping against the controls with restless energy.
ETA 4 minutes.
The bridge was quiet, far quieter than it should have been. First Officer Linara Voss paced near the captain's station, her expression carefully composed but her tension evident.
Still no response?
She asked. Master of Vox Arlen Jast exhaled sharply, adjusting the Vox dials with the ease of a man who had done this 1,000 times. He had been trying to reach the outpost since they had left the battle fleet, and the silence was beginning to unsettle even him.
Nothing but dead air,
he muttered.
Either their Vox array's been slagged or there's no one left to answer.
Or they are already dead,
came the cold voice of ship's commissar Julian Orfiel. He stood near the bridge's central pulpit, hands clasped neatly behind his back, his posture rigid as ever.
If the Xenos have claimed this outpost, then our only course of action is to purge it in holy fire.
Voss shot him a look.
Let's confirm there's something left to purge before we start burning things, Commissar.
Orfiel's eyes darkened, but he said nothing. From his station, Chief Tactical Officer Ren Vargas spoke, his voice devoid of its usual sharpness.
I don't like this. The Tyranids don't take their time. If they hit the outpost, there should be wreckage. Survivors. Something. This kind of silence.
He hesitated.
It's wrong.
Silence is never empty.
Navigator Syra Quint murmured. She sat in the shadows of her alcove, her psychic blindfold concealing the warp-touched third eye on her forehead.
Something lingers. I feel traces, but faint. As if whatever happened here is already fading.
The words made the bridge even quieter. Gaius exhaled, shifting his gaze to Master of August Tyrus Hale. The man had been running constant scans, his fingers working the auger displays with mechanical precision.
Hale?
Hale didn't respond immediately. His augmented eyes flickered as he studied the readings, his brow furrowing.
I don't like this,
he finally muttered.
There's something on the edges of the system, a shadow, a distortion.
Explain,
Gaius ordered. Hale shook his head.
It's like...
He cut himself off, recalibrating.
There's mass where there shouldn't be, but the readings shift, flicker, as if it's trying to mask itself.
He exhaled.
We're being watched.
The words hung in the air, suffocating. Then the Vox crackled. At first, it was nothing but distorted static, but then the screaming began.
Emperor preserve us,
Just whispered. The bridge crew froze as the Vox speakers filled with raw, agonized howls, the unmistakable gut-wrenching sound of men dying in ways no human should ever die. Through the interference, a panicked voice cut through.
Help us! Help us! The walls! They're inside! They're inside! Oh, throne, it's...
The transmission cut to static, then another voice. This one raw, choking.
Melted the bulkhead! They just... Oh God, Emperor! It's alive! The ship is...
Another scream, wet, choking. Then through the chaos, another transmission cut in, clearer than the rest.
This is the blessed resolve. We are overrun. I repeat, we are...
A horrible, wet, organic squelching. A pause. Then something else spoke, not human. A chittering, unnatural voice that echoed through the Vox. A voice that was not a voice at all. The bridge was deathly silent. Just's fingers hovered over the Vox controls as if hesitant to breathe. Then, another transmission. But this time, not a distress call. This one was an open channel. a shipwide broadcast. The crew of the Blessed Resolve wasn't sending it. Something else was. The speakers burst open with noise, not voices, not words. A wet, organic churning, like flesh grinding against metal, like bones snapping under pressure, like something massive breathing, but through lungs that should not exist. A heartbeat later, a scream. But this time, the scream did not end. It stretched, pulled. It became something else, something inhuman. A sound that no vocal cords could produce. A sound of digestion. The Blessed Resolve was being eaten alive. And they were listening to it happen. The sound cut off abruptly. The bridge was silent, save for the distant hum of cogitators and the ever-present drone of the ship's engines. Then, Orpheus spoke. His voice was calm, but beneath it lurked something else, something that had never been in his tone before. Hesitation.
Captain,
the Commissar said slowly.
I suggest we do not respond.
No one disagreed. Voss was pale, her fingers curled into fists. Vargas was staring at the Vox unit as if expecting it to come alive. Hale looked like he wanted to burn the auger screens. Even Revis 9 was silent. Gaius inhaled, his hands tightened behind his back. This was not fear. This was worse than fear. It was the beginning of understanding.
Helm,
he ordered, his voice steady.
Take us in.
Vale hesitated, only for a second. Then he muttered a quiet curse and gripped the controls.
Aye, Captain. Closing distance.
The Indomitable Wrath pressed forward. And somewhere, in the black void ahead, something watched them come. 16 hours. Since the Blessed Resolve's last transmission, the Indomitable Wrath and its escorting frigates emerge from the void, piercing the darkness like silent hunters, their hulls gleaming with the dull reflection of the moon below. The orbital defenses of Vrone Theta, the Imperial listening post that had gone silent, should have been there to greet them. They were not. Captain Havelock Gaius stood rigid on the bridge, hands clasped tightly behind his back, as the horrors outside unfolded across the massive viewport. They had arrived too late. The ships that had once protected the outpost, Imperial escort vessels, picket cruisers, and orbital defense platforms, were no longer ships. They had been hollowed out, their hulls split open like rotten fruit, their once proud warforms covered in thick, writhing biomass. The skeletal remains of voidcraft drifted in the black, their steel frames mangled, warped, as though something had digested them from within. Beyond them, Tyranid bioships loomed, vast and terribly alive. Their organic hulls pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, their surfaces slick with pulsing veins of shifting color. Great chitinous ridges lined their spines, and sickly, semi-translucent sacs bulged from their flanks, pregnant with unspeakable things. And then there were the tendrils, dozens of them, monstrous, organic appendages, extended from the larger Tyranid vessels and plunged downwards toward the moon below. They were not just attacking the surface, they were feeding from it. The hololithic display flickered with enhanced magnifications of the moon's surface. The outpost was gone. Where once had stood a proud imperial stronghold, now there was only devastation, blackened ruins, shattered infrastructure. Nothing moved. And yet, the Tyranids were still harvesting. First Officer Linara Voss exhaled sharply, eyes fixed on the growing horror below.
They're not just killing everything. They're taking it.
The Tyranid tendrils pulsed, pulling vast quantities of material from the surface, not just organic matter, but metal, stone, structures, everything. The ground itself was being stripped away, funneled up into the gaping maws of the bioships that lurked in orbit, their swollen bellies distending with each pulse. Master of Augurs Tyrus Hale adjusted his readings, his face tight with barely concealed discomfort.
The tendrils are breaking down matter at a molecular level,
he reported.
Stripping everything, stone, metal, flesh, into raw biomass. It's being funneled into that thing.
He gestured to a monstrous bulbous bioship at the center of the feeding, its gargantuan body swollen with liquefied remains. Helmsmaster Orin Vale swallowed hard.
I really don't like that thing.
Noted.
Gaius said, voice cold.
Continue scanning.
Captain.
Voss's voice had lost its usual iron control.
Where are the people?
For a moment, no one spoke. Then, Navigator Sira Quint spoke from the shadows of her alcove, her voice a hollow murmur.
They're already inside.
A cold silence settled over the bridge. Voss clenched her jaw.
Survivors?
Hale shook his head.
No life signs, not as we understand them.
He exhaled.
If they were alive when they were taken, they aren't anymore.
A ripple of unease spread through the bridge. Even Commissar Julian Orphiel, whose faith was as unshakable as iron, stood rigid, his gauntleted hands tightening behind his back.
They don't even care that we're here,
Vargas murmured. That fact disturbed Gaius more than he wanted to admit. The Indomitable Wrath had not been fired upon. None of the Tyranid ships had so much as turned to face them.
We're irrelevant.
Voss Susuro. The Tyranids had already won this battle. The outpost was gone. The defenders were gone. And the fleet above was digesting the very land itself. And they were just observers, motes of dust drifting on the edge of something far greater than them. Gaius closed his eyes for a long moment. When he spoke, it was without hesitation.
We have our answer. This place is lost.
He turned to Just.
Transmit our findings to the battle fleet. Secure line, now.
Just nodded sharply, fingers flying over the Vox controls. Gaius then turned to Vargas and Hale.
Assess firing solutions. I want to know if we can cripple that feeding ship before we leave.
That made Vargas hesitate.
Sir, we can hit it, but
it might notice us.
Hale finished. A grim silence fell over the bridge. Gaius knew the unspoken truth. The Indomitable Wrath and its escorts could unleash hell upon the Tyranid bioship. They could fire every lance, every torpedo, every macro cannon shell they had, and rip it apart. But the moment they did, the Hive Fleet would see them. The entire Hive Fleet. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, a quiet, hollow chuckle. All eyes turned to Navigator Sira Quint. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap. Her blindfold concealed her warp-scarred third eye, but there was something unnerving about the way she tilted her head slightly.
Amusing,
she murmured. Gaius's expression hardened. Explain. Quint's lips barely moved.
We are watching something that does not even acknowledge us.
She said softly.
And yet, we are debating whether or not to poke it.
The words hung heavy over the bridge. For once, even Orphiel did not immediately counter with an imperial proclamation. Gaius sighed, rubbing his temple.
The risk is too great. We leave.
He turned to Vale.
Helm, plot us an exit vector. Make it fast.
Aye, Captain.
Vale muttered, tapping in the calculations. As he worked, Jas let out a slow breath.
Fleet Command has acknowledged receipt of our report. No new orders.
He hesitated.
Yet.
Gaius nodded. The battle fleet was still preparing for war. It was only a matter of time before they clashed with the full weight of the Hive Fleet. But for now, they were leaving. The Indomitable Wrath turned away from the moon, its escort frigates following suit. As the distance grew, Gaius took one last look at the viewport, where the great devourers continued their feast, uninterrupted. The sight sickened him. The Imperium had spent centuries building this sector. The Tyranids would unmake it in days. He did not know if they could stop them. All he knew was that the next time they saw these monsters, the Tyranids would see them too, and then the real battle would begin.
Alright guys, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. As you may have noticed, there's a lot less images in this one. It allows me to get the stories out a little bit faster. This was part 1 of a 3-part series, and then I'll release the entire video standalone. Yeah, if you liked it, please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. We just made it to 1,000 subscribers, so that's pretty cool. Pretty stoked on that. So yeah, I hope you guys have a good night, or a good rest of your day. And stay tuned. More content coming.